The night was thick and heavy like wet cloth wrapped around the forest, and every tree stood like a silent witness waiting for something to happen, something terrible, something old that had been forgotten by the world but remembered by the shadows that lived between the branches. A long narrow road ran through the forest, and on that road a small bus moved, slowly, its engine coughing. In the cold darkness the bus carried 7 passengers, each tired, each unaware that they were moving toward a place where no road ever led back. The driver, named Ryan, kept glancing at the fuel gauge because it had been dropping unusually fast, as if something invisible was drinking from the tank. Inside the bus a girl named Liana clutched her backpack and stared out the window. The darkness outside felt alive, not empty, but breathing and shifting. And watching her, she whispered to her friend Donnie, "I think someone is walking beside the bus." And Donnie laughed, but there was fear in his voice when he said, "Nobody can walk in this darkness, not even animals. They all hide at this hour." A sudden jolt shook the bus as if something massive had bumped into it. Ryan pulled the vehicle to a stop. Everyone looked out, but the forest was still. No wind, no animals, not even the soft buzz of insects. Liana pressed her hand to the glass and said, "I felt something touch me through the window," and then she pulled her hand away because the glass felt warm like a human cheek. The driver stepped out with a flashlight. The beam of light stretched only a short distance, as if being swallowed by the darkness. He moved around the bus and then he froze. His voice trembled when he called out, "There are footprints here, big ones, and they appear from nowhere and go nowhere." Everyone inside started whispering, voices shaking with fear. Liana said, "Donnie, I swear something is moving behind the trees. I can hear breathing." Donnie told her to calm down, but even he kept looking over his shoulder as if expecting someone to speak directly into his ear. Ryan climbed back in the bus and said, "We need to move now," but when he turned the key, the engine made a low groaning sound like something trapped inside was trying to escape. The lights flickered and then died. The bus was swallowed by darkness and silence. Then very slowly, the bus began to move on its own, rolling backward even though the road was flat. Ryan stomped the brakes. Nothing happened. The bus kept rolling, then sliding like something was pulling it. All the passengers screamed. Donnie leaned over to help the driver, but then the bus stopped so suddenly that everyone lurched forward. The darkness outside shifted. A tall shape stood near the front of the bus. The outline was wrong to narrow at the top to wide at the bottom, and its arms hung far too long. Someone inside whispered, "That is not human," and Liana pressed her head down, covering her ears, because a low humming sound had begun vibrating through the bus like a voice speaking from the ground itself. The figure moved closer, its body bent as if it had no bones, and its head tilted until it touched the window. Then a pale eye opened on a featureless face staring directly at Liana. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Donnie pulled her back, but the eye followed her inside the bus, as if seeing through the metal. Suddenly the figure vanished, replaced by silence. A moment later, loud scratching echoed across the roof, long dragging strokes like claws digging into metal. The bus began to shake. Ryan shouted, "Everybody get out now," but when they tried, the doors would not open. Something outside was holding them shut. The scratching stopped. A new sound began, whispering, soft and slow like someone crawling under the bus. Donnie grabbed Liana and said, "Move to the back, maybe we can break the emergency exit." Ryan joined them and together they pushed the window, finally cracked open, letting in cold night air. But the air did not feel empty, it felt crowded, pressed, filled with shapes that could not be seen. Still they climbed out one by one. Their feet touched the ground, which felt warm like soil above. Hidden fire ahead of them, the forest stretched silent and endless. The bus behind them groaned like a living creature. Ryan said, "Follow me. There is an old ranger station a short walk from here. We can get help." The group started walking. Liana stayed close to Donnie, but she could hear footsteps behind them too soft to belong to any of them, too many to count. Something whispered her name from the trees, Liana. The voice was soft but stretched wrong, like someone speaking through broken lungs. She looked back, thinking it might be the wind, but she saw movement between the trunks. Pale fingers wrapping around bark, then letting go, then appearing closer. Ryan saw it too and hurried them faster. He said, "Nobody look back, no matter what." And for a few minutes they obeyed, until a horrible wailing sound rose Behind them a cry that sounded like a child screaming underwater. Liana could not resist turning. She regretted it instantly. The figure from before was crawling toward them, but now it had many arms, branching out like wet roots. Each arm dragged across the soil, leaving marks, shaped like hands but with too many fingers. The face was still blank, except for those pale eyes that watched without blinking. Liana screamed. Donnie grabbed her hand and they ran. The creature moved faster than anything should be able to move, bending and twisting through narrow spaces between trees, without footsteps, without breath, only a soft rattling like bones rubbing together. They reached the old ranger station and burst inside, slamming the wooden door with all their strength. The place smelled of dust and rotting wood. A lantern sat on a table. Rayan lit it, and for a brief moment the room felt safe, warm, almost ordinary. But then they heard something outside dragging around the walls, slow scratching, answering scratches from inside the wood itself. They all stepped back as cracks formed like thin black veins spreading along the walls. Liana whispered, "Donnie, is it trying to come through?" And before he could answer, a loud thud struck the door. Something began pushing from outside, bending the wood inward. The lantern flickered. The shadows in the corners stretched as if growing legs. Rayan grabbed a broken metal rod and stood in front of the door, but the thing outside stopped suddenly. Silence, then footsteps on the roof, something heavy crawling overhead. Dust fell from the ceiling with each movement. Donnie whispered, "It is above us, trying to find a way in." The ceiling groaned. Each step sounded closer until a large dark shape pressed down low enough to bow the wooden beams. The lantern flame shrank, almost dying. Then a scream tore through the room, but it was not from the creature. It came from one of the passengers, a man named Adil, who pointed at the corner. His shadow on the wall had begun moving on its own, separating from his body, crawling upward like a dark reflection trying to escape his flesh. Adil staggered back, shouting, but his shadow climbed the wall, stretching its arms, then spreading across the ceiling until it touched the shadow of the creature above. The two shadows merged and the creature screamed for the first time, a warped shriek that shook the entire cabin. The roof tore open, hands reached inside, long, thin, and cold. Donnie pulled Liana beneath the table as debris fell. Rayan swung the metal rod, hitting one of the hands, but it only wrapped around the rod and pulled it away like taking a toy from a child. The creature dropped into the room, its body twisted but tall, its head brushing the broken rafters. It turned slowly, its eye opening again, that pale lidless gaze sweeping across each person in the room. Rayan stepped forward, shouting, "Leave them and take me." Instead, the creature turned to Adil, whose shadow had already left him, and he was barely standing. Adil collapsed, gripping his chest as the creature moved over him, absorbing the living shadow into its body. Adil fell lifeless to the floor, his eyes empty. The creature grew taller, stronger, feeding on him. Liana screamed. Donnie grabbed her and pulled her toward the back door. They ran outside, into the forest again, the darkness thicker than before, hugging them, pushing them, trapping them. Branches twisted like arms reaching for them. Roots moved beneath their feet, something whispering beneath the soil as if thousands of voices were speaking together. Follow us, you belong here." They ran until they reached an old wooden bridge stretched over a deep ravine. The ravine looked endless, filled with swirling fog. Donnie said, "We can cross it. The creature won't catch us across the bridge." But before they stepped forward, the fog shifted, and the pale eye appeared on the other side, waiting. Behind them, the creature emerged from the trees, its arms spreading like dark branches, closing the path. Liana clutched Donnie and whispered, "We cannot escape." Both sides, the eye on the bridge blinked slowly as if inviting them forward. The creature behind them hissed a dry, rattling sound. Then Liana realized something. The creature feared light. The lantern had pushed its shadows back for a moment. She turned to Donnie, saying, "Give me your phone." She opened the flashlight and pointed it at the creature. The light trembled in her shaking hands, but the creature recoiled, shrinking backward, its arms folding into its body. The eye on the other side of the bridge flickered to like smoke being blown away. They ran across the bridge, the flashlight struggling but still alive. The creature shrieked behind them but did not follow. The wooden planks creaked and swayed as they crossed. When they reached the other side, they turned to see the creature melting back into the trees, its form stretching like tar being pulled downward until it disappeared into the ravine with a final echoing hiss. Liana and Donnie collapsed, breathing hard, shaking eyes wide with terror. They could not speak for a long time. Only the forest breathed around them, heavy and slow. After what felt like an eternity, they stood and walked toward the faint glow of dawn. The trees slowly thinned, the air grew lighter. They reached an empty road outside the forest, and both dropped to their knees, overwhelmed with relief. But Donnie noticed something in the distance near the tree line. A single pale eye watching, unmoving, waiting. The creature had not died, it had only retreated, and its shadow stretched farther than before, as if marking them, claiming them. Liana whispered, "Donnie, it knows us now. It won't stop." He held her close, looking at the pale eye, knowing she was right. They could leave the forest, but the forest would not leave them. And with the rising sun behind them and the endless shadow ahead, they continued walking down the road, knowing that the darkness would follow them wherever they went.